which shows corneal thinning in such a pattern. So how do we treat keratoconus? So it is divided into three aspects. One is strengthening the cornea, the other is rehabilitating the patient from the vision point of view, also altering the structures for a better vision in the patient. So collagen cross-linking comes under strengthening procedure. This photosensitized oxidation was introduced in the year of 1968, but in the field of ophthalmology, the University of Dresden used it in amalgamation with riboflavin to give a procedure called as collagen cross-linking, which was then tried in humans by Wolenczak et al. In the year 2003. So collagen cross-linking, the essential elements in these conditions are ultraviolet light, riboflavin and oxygenation. So each of them have a very particular role in creating a cross-linking. So the riboflavin, which is a photosensitizer, actually increases the absorption and UV ultraviolet rays absorption, causing covalent bonds. So as you can see in this picture, when the riboflavin is activated with the help of ultraviolet rays, there is an anaerobic and aerobic reaction happening. So oxygen depletion and oxygen utilization, both phases are very important in formation of covalent bonds. So the basic principle, the primary aim of us is to stop progression. So when these covalent bonds are formed, it causes biomechanical stiffening between the collagens, because of which it reduces the steepening as well as causes some amount of flattening in the cornea. Some of the additive benefits of collagen cross-linking as its antimicrobial effect, reduces the edema in the cornea, also gives some amount of thermostability. Criteria for collagen cross-linking definitely is a patient who is diagnosed of keratoconus but of an age more than 10 years or less than 30 years. Free patients coming with frequent change of glasses with a vision less than 6/9. Known case of allergies with a strong family history, plus the final topography confirmation. So when we look at the topography, we have to make sure that in this case, this is a pentacam. So first is the Kmax. The Kmax definitely would be more than 47 diopters for the diagnosis of keratoconus, but should be less than 70 diopters, because beyond which the cross-linking will not be very effective. Secondly is the pachymetry. It is very important that the thinnest pachy is more than 400 microns, because less than this will cause endothelial decompensation. So in case of BAD or Bellin-Ambrosio display, the anterior float of more than 10 microns, the posterior float more than 15 microns is the criteria. What are the absolute contraindications for collagen cross-linking? Now you know that this patient is having keratoconus, there is high risk of progression, but it is not possible to do any kind of C3R in this patient. They are patients with prior herpetic keratitis, because we know any kind of treatment on the cornea will accelerate this keratitis. Collagen vascular disease, again there will be intense scarring in these patients. Pre-scarred corneas or advanced conditions. Pregnancy, definitely we cannot do any procedures, or already high-dropped eyes. The variable contraindications are pre-op keratometry of less than 400. So my senior Dr. Anand sir will be speaking how to handle this. Extreme suffragan less than 14 years, because obviously patient cooperation. More than 30 to 40 years, patients would already undergo a strong self-cross-linking in the eye, because of which the cornea will not be tentative for a progression, and keratometric reading more than 70 diopters. Now, in patients who have keratoconus and need collagen cross-link, but we have to wait and watch. These are patients of more than 30 years. We need not do collagen cross-link for them. Patients whose vision is 6/6 have a frequent follow-up of every 6 months. Patients who have a very stable glass power. Patients who have a form frustrate keratoconus. So these are the patients, in spite of keratoconus, they are eligible for collagen cross-linking, but then we need to wait and watch, because obviously we have to look at the complications of the procedures also. So coming to the classical protocol or the Dresden's protocol, this involves instillation of riboflavin 0.1% for every 3 to 5 minutes in the initial 30 minutes, followed by ultraviolet A rays, that is 370 nanometers irradiation at the speed of 3 milliwatt per centimeter square for 30 minutes. So the total energy required for a cross-linking is 5.4 joules per centimeter square. So during the ultraviolet ray absorption, irradiation, we have to instill riboflavin every 5 to 10 minutes. Now, as I told you, the dose is very important, and this is called as the fluence. The combination what you're seeing, the power into time is what we get as a joules or the energy. So maintaining 5.4 joules per centimeter square is very important. But as usual, everybody wants to do a faster treatment so that the time consumption is less. So there were different techniques that were coming into the market in the name of accelerated C3R. But what was found was maximum benefit was attained for a 10 milliwatt centimeter square for 9 minutes. Anything more than this, the anaerobic and aerobic activation of the riboflavin was very, very minimal. So the actual collagen cross-linking was not happening. So thus the rest of the procedures were not popular. Now coming to the post-op, these definitely following the procedure, a contact lens has to be put. These patients have an installation of antibiotics. Steroids is a very personal choice of corneal surgeons. Some of them use steroids after 3 days once the contact lens is removed, while some of them prefer starting the steroids on day 1. So both of them are okay depending on your personal experiences. Preferably starting it earlier would be easier to prevent any kind of inflammation. Systemically, definitely patients will be very photophobic, so giving them analgesia for first 2 days is very, very important. Epithelium healing takes place within 48 hours, so day 3 contact lens can be removed, and visual acuity can be checked at the end of day 3 weeks, because at the end of 3 weeks almost 50% refractive correction would have been achieved. However, patient has to be mentioned that there could be fluctuation in the refractive error, and only at the end of 3 months to 8 months they would be attaining their pre-C3R refractive error. So the reason for this kind of changes in refractive error is the corneal haze caused by keratocite apoptosis. So this normally resolves over a period of weeks, and if we do an anterior segment OCT at the end of 3 to 4 weeks, we will be seeing a demarcation line exactly at 300 or 250 microns, which is the place where we require the strengthening to happen. So some of the complications following C3Rs are, some are side effects, some are complications. Now pain is a side effect of C3R, but complication is persistent epithelial defect. So if a patient has already a surface disorder, a epithelial dystrophy or any kind of a thing, or a dry eye, severe dry eye, patients are having very small kids with disturbed sleep patterns, there are chances that when the initial healing has taken place, there is kind of a improper healing, because of which they can develop persistent corneal epithelial defect. In such conditions, we have to maintain them on a long-term lubricant as well as a mild dose of steroid so that the healing takes place properly. Stromal haze. Stromal haze is normally seen clears by 9 to 12 months. Persistent haze is very, very rare cases where too much of energy is used. Infective keratitis, proper hygiene and as well as antibiotics post-op normally brings down infective keratitis. Sterile infiltrates normally respond to steroids. Now sterile infiltrates basically are entrapment of the local organisms in between the contact lens and the epithelium, because of which these infiltrate. They are non-infective infiltrates. So just by merely putting steroids, it can be taken care. So this is exactly why I told it is a surgeon's decision whether to start steroids on day 1 or on day 3 depending on their experience. And lastly, corneal edema. This is exactly the reason why the Dresden's protocol prefers 400 microns as a cutoff, because 350 is where the stromal scarring happens, and anything less than this, if we take for the collagen cross-linking, there is a chance of endothelial decomposition. Most of the time, keratoconus is not accompanied by Fuchs dystrophy, but there are conditions. So if you feel that the cornea is very thick in spite of keratoconus, it's always better to do a specular in these patients. And this is one of the latest technology which is in the market called as a collagen cross-linking in the slit lamp or a customized collagen cross-linking. So as I said, we have certain pachymetric criteria to do collagen cross-linking. So in customized collagen cross-linking, exclusively where the cone is very, very thin, we have a lesser amount of energy being placed. Whereas when the cone is very, very thicker, that area we have a higher energy being placed. So this is how a collagen cross-linking is done. Now I would like to introduce my mentor, Dr. Anand Balasubramanian sir. So he has been working in Shankara Eye Hospital as a senior consultant in the Department of Cornea, Refractive and Cataract Surgery. So he has immense experience in the field of cornea, keratoconus as well as keratoplasty and ocular surface diseases. So sir, kindly take over.
Good morning everyone. At the outset, I'd like to thank Dr. Sanjana and KSOS for giving me the opportunity. So I'll be talking on C3R in thin corneas. Dr. Sanjana has very nicely spoken about the C3R treatment, which was introduced in 2003 mainly to as a minimal